$14.23 a month with $14.73 due at signing for current AZD plan employee lessees. Rock into your Metro Detroit Ford dealers clearance.
Watch Jerry Hodak and the W7 Weather Team on Action News.
We are on an American journey. Go in search of America and you will find America looking back at you. Freedom, self-expression, reinterpreting the Founding Fathers' ideas from generation to generation. This is an exceptional nation. America's principles have been shaken, molded, adapted, and assaulted, but they endure. If you are living the American experience, In Search of America is in some ways about you.
Now from New York, Peter Jennings.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our series, In Search of America. We have had a fascinating time, which we will now share with you, exploring the soul and the character and the identity of this exceptional nation through the lives of many people. Our point of departure is Federal Hall in Lower Manhattan, because this is where the first United States Congress met in 1789, where George Washington was inaugurated as the first president. That's him up on the pedestal. And where, in a few days, the current Congress will meet to mark the events of last September. Being here is a good reminder that America endures through all manner of crisis and challenge. Our series is a journey through American ideas conceived by the founders, reinterpreted by every generation since. We're going to begin with something very important to all of us. What role do we want government to play in our lives?
Mr. Speaker, the President of the United States.
No matter how much people love America,
What is going on? This is America.
there is nothing like government to get people riled up.
From my cold, dead hands.
Church, not the state.
You will be arrested, so you're prepared for that?
Yes, we are. There are millions of us that do not like what's going on.
Sometimes the loudest complainers about government
It deals with images, sound bites, dirty tricks.
are the people in government.
Our government is too big and it spends too much.
Government has been the enemy of some,
Supreme Court or no Supreme Court, we are going to maintain segregated schools in Dixie.
and last resort for many.
Have you ever been a member of the Communist Party?
Sometimes power is wielded by demagogues in government.
One communist is one communist too many.
Sometimes government attacks its own citizens. And this is what happened when a man hated the government enough to kill. The role of government has always been an issue in the lives of free and independent people. In the beginning, there were those opposed to adopting the Constitution because they thought it made the federal government too powerful. So they added a Bill of Rights to protect individuals. And this balancing act is still going on. Our story tonight unfolds in the vast and beautiful countryside of the American West. This is a scene that men and women who settled the American West would never have imagined.
There's three altogether there.
Just after sunrise in Yellowstone National Park, on a ridge overlooking the park's Lamar Valley, people from all over the United States and other countries as well have gathered to witness one of nature's most efficient killers at work.
Right. Well, they're just all moving right through the scope. Do you want to see, Sarah?
Mm-hmm. You know I want to see.
Well, you can.
Those are gray wolves,
Oh, look at them.
Canis lupus. They were once nearly extinct in the West, but the gray wolf was reintroduced to this vast landscape 7 years ago by the federal government. And that has made many people who live here furious.
Oh, and then what's running off to the...
Oh, look at
They're off to the races.
yeah.
They're chasing.
Oh.
Coming our way, just what we like.
Keep coming, guys. Keep coming.
Does somebody want to look through this scope?
This is great.
There's one wolf on each tail. Oh, my God.
Oh, my golly.
Oh,
Take a look,
man,
Julie.
that one on the right is right there.
Oh, geez.
Oh, whoa, right. Oh, look at the young run. Oh, my God.
I would if those guys were in there. Now, what's going to happen when they hit the river?
Behind the tree.
What are they going to do when they hit the river?
Oh,
Well, that was cool. You guys.
Yeah. Look at those.
Many of these people come to America's first national park every year because for them, the wolf is a source of endless fascination.
Well, think about it. Here you have this animal that weighs maybe 100 pounds, and it's attacking animals that are 3 or 4 times its weight, and all it has to get them to the ground are, you know, a couple canines a couple inches long. And having a chance to see how they survive and kill their prey is pretty exciting for people.
But a few hundred miles away, just over the Continental Divide in central Idaho, the wolves are a source of endless conflict. This is ranching country.
Governor, why were you opposed to the reintroduction in the first place?
This has been a very heavily financed program by the federal government to bring in the wolf. And because you said, we're coming in and we really don't care what you say, if I did that to you, Mr. Jennings, you'd get your back up against a wall too, and you wouldn't like it.
Just because the wolves are here, we have to live with them is baloney. The Canadian gray wolf in our area is a land piranha and a wildlife terrorist.
Isn't it a wonderful concept to have this huge national zoo? I don't know whether they have the concept that we do of a lamb or a calf with its back end ripped out and being eaten alive.
Wolf predation is never going to put anybody out of business. I mean, you know, killing a calf or 2 a year is not going to drive anybody out of business.
A lot of ranchers don't believe that.
That's certainly true.
Well, how many did you figure you lost, Jimmy?
This year?
This year is combined all year. 28 head this year, 20 eggs.
There was once a thing that we all read about in American history called the Boston Tea Party. And sometimes it takes those kinds of actions to change the course of what's good for communities.
When we come back, the wolf and the war on the West.
Right now, you can get 50% off all lenses at LensCrafters. 50% off every lens we carry, even featherweights and no-line bifocals. No hidden costs or catches. People should definitely not miss this.
Hurry, LensCrafters offer ends September 7th.
The new commercial's on! On September 17th, feast your eye on the best movie of the year.
Scary feet, twins, and a bunk bed. Ooh, I thought I had you there.
Disney and Pixar's Monsters, Inc. Own at Monster Tuesday, September 17th.
What do you see?
I see new KFC Honey Cajun Wings in your future.
Introducing new Honey Cajun Wings, glazed in spicy Cajun sauces, 8 for $2.99 or 20 for only $7.49, or in Honey Barbecue Wings.
There's fast food, and then there's KFC.
Ta-da! Ta-da!
Just try to tear yourself away from the Pier 1 40th birthday sale.
Whatever.
In Search of America continues. Here again, Peter Jennings.
We are flying through the Boulder White Cloud Mountains in central Idaho. We are with Ed Bangs, who is in charge of the federal program to reintroduce the wolves.
Okay, Jack, we got a visual on them. We're circling right over the top of them here.
Look at them move. Ed, has the wolf had the slightest problem adapting in here?
No, this is a great wolf habitat. In fact, the areas of Canada where we got the wolves from are very similar to this.
As far as you're concerned, from the point of view of the federal government, has this been a successful program?
Oh, absolutely. We're within budget. We're on schedule. We've got more wolves than we thought. So, yeah, it's been a big success.
But a lot of people in Idaho, especially ranchers, think the only good wolf is a dead wolf. They feel betrayed by the federal government. Their world is, after all, very much a creation of the federal government.
Without the federal government, we wouldn't have the West, as people understand it. The federal government took care of the Native American problem by relocating them, built the water supply system for the West, all sorts of federal subsidies and programs that helped the West develop. Without the federal government, the West would not have gotten to where it is. Yes, there were rugged individuals that did marvelous things, but the story is the story of government.
And the government has been in conflict with the wolves since the first Europeans set foot here.
How many wolves were there? How widespread were they in North America before the settlers got here?
Before it was colonized by Europeans, wolves were common everywhere north of what is now Mexico City, all the way to the Arctic Ocean. And so essentially everywhere except the driest deserts were occupied by wolves, so they were very common.
And wolves were in the way of progress. American settlers were marching westward with visions of taming these wild lands and making them productive for the good of man.
The history of our relationship with the gray wolf is fascinating. In this country, we launched a war that started in the 1600s and was carried out with great determination until the mid-1900s anyway. We took the most common large mammal and drove it to the brink of extinction. It really was the conflict between wolves and livestock that drove the eradication campaign.
The men and women who raised the cattle and sheep on the western frontier were feeding the other Americans intent on settling the West. As the livestock began to graze the same western range as the wolf, sheep and cattle became easy prey.
The story of the West was the story of the opening up and the use of the natural resources, and that included grazing of domestic animals on public lands. The interaction between sheep and cattle with predators was naturally not something that the early cattlemen or sheepmen enjoyed.
The early settlers wanted the wolf eradicated. This was a job for the federal government, the kind of job the founding fathers had envisioned for it. Wolves had no regard for borders. Individual states could not protect citizens, and so getting rid of this predator required a national effort.
There's no question that the wildlife agencies at the turn of the century, in the hands of some pretty competent people, were basically partners with my ancestors and Westerners in systematically poisoning, trapping, shooting, exterminating mountain lions, bobcats, bears, badgers, ferrets, wolves. The federal government was very much implicit in the Western ethic of the 19th century, which was resource exploitation, mining, logging, ranching, comes above all else, to which everything else must be subordinated.
By the mid-1930s, the gray wolf was all but gone from the country. Here in Idaho, cattle and sheep grazed for generations with nothing to fear from the animal that was once North America's most widespread predator. And then in the 1960s, in parts of America far from here, many people began to take a deeper interest in the environment and the nation's wildlife.
I don't think there is any doubt that the change of attitude towards the wolf is a real symbol of the changing values of the public. Tremendous difference in attitude from the 1860s to the 1960s.
So if you love your
In the 1960s, what became the environmental movement was a growing force in American politics. It argued that man's dominion over the natural world was too destructive, that subduing and conquering nature, as had been the case in the West, was no longer acceptable.
Please sign a petition against pollution.
The defining moment for the movement was the passage of a federal law called the Endangered Species Act.
The Endangered Species Act, at least in my judgment, the most powerful environmental law that's ever been passed. And I think the reason is that it embodies a moral point of view. Underlying it is simply the Noah idea that we have a moral responsibility to protect God's creation. And that doesn't just mean, you know, a few species that look nice in a zoo or some plants that might provide a cancer cure. It means all of creation.
President Nixon signed the Endangered Species Act into law.
The time has come for man to make his peace with nature. The quality of our life on this good land is a cause to unite all Americans.
The gray wolf had found a friend in Richard Nixon. The notion, he said, that the only good predator is a dead one is no longer acceptable.
The gray wolf was one of the very first species listed under the Endangered Species Act. That spawned a national movement and a national constituency to effect a recovery program that would bring the gray wolf back from the brink of extinction.
The program to reintroduce the wolf was opposed every step of the way by the livestock industry. It took nearly 20 years to work its way through the federal bureaucracy. The final plan called for the United States Fish and Wildlife Service to reintroduce wolves into Yellowstone National Park and the central Idaho wilderness, which meant that wolves would be free to roam on the very same federal lands that Idaho ranchers used to graze their cattle and sheep.
This was the case of the federal government telling those of you here in the state that it was going to do what it wanted to do, and you didn't have an awful lot of say in it.
None.
With virtually every rancher we spoke to, it didn't take many words to express what they were feeling. The government was riding roughshod over them.
I just thought it was a dumb thing to do to bring them back.
Introducing wolves, we think is pretty stupid. We don't need wolves here.
Well, yeah, I thought it was crazy, like most Idahoans.
Almost everywhere we went in Idaho, including the state capitol, this was seen as a case of them in Washington versus us.
I'm Jay Nider. I have a ranch at Stanley. I'm definitely against this plan. I'm definitely against the wolves in the state of Idaho.
Idaho citizens have been trampled on by the federal government's wolf program.
We could not believe that rational people wanted to turn wolves loose in Idaho.
Wolves were removed from Idaho in the 30s and the problem was solved. The ecosystem did not perish. Why should we now provide a wolf experience in Idaho for the American public?
Because the American public living far from Idaho was in favor of the federal government's plan to reintroduce the wolf.
We in Idaho would like to think, well, we live here. It affects us more. We're more intimately involved in it. We care about it more. We see the trade-offs more clearly, and we ought to have more to say about it than the federal government. But certainly that's not the case today.
In Search of America will continue in a moment.
Today, we showed this grandfather how he could count on long-term care insurance to be there for him. If he ever needs it.
My baby don't care for.
Father, son, middle-aged, teenage, wedding band, metal band. Makes the money, spends the money. What brings them to the table? Honey Nut Checks. The taste of golden honey and nuts that's sweet, but not too sweet, so everybody likes it. If they can share this, what's next? A father-son garage band? Let's just stick with breakfast. Honey Nut Checks, the taste that brings families together. For breakfast, anyway.
Get truly clean where it really counts with a new Cottonelle toilet paper. Our new wider ripples are thick and absorbent to leave you feeling Cottonelle clean. Cottonelle with new wider ripples, what it means to feel clean.
Wherever you choose to travel in the totally new 2003 Ford Expedition, and no matter how unfriendly the traffic gets, you will be surrounded by the protection of dual front airbags, plus the only safety canopy system available in a full-size SUV. The totally new 2003 Ford Expedition, because safety should have no boundaries.
If you've had a heart attack or a stroke, the last thing you need is another one sneaking up on you. After all, you've got better things to do. I know. In my case, I had a heart attack. Then I heard about Plavix, and so I asked my doctor. He told me Plavix is a prescription pill that can help protect you from a heart attack or stroke if you've recently had one, or if you have poor circulation in the legs causing pain.
Plavix is proven to help keep blood platelets from sticking together and forming clots, which helps keep your blood flowing. This can help protect you from another heart attack or stroke. If you have a medical condition that is causing bleeding, such as a stomach ulcer, you should not use Plavix. Side effects include itching, rash, diarrhea, and bruising. Additional rare but serious side effects could occur. Ask your doctor.
Taking Plavix once a day helps protect me.
Find out if Plavix can help protect you from another heart attack or stroke.
Michaels and Madden are here for Monday night.
Steelers, Patriots, 9 Eastern.
Tuesday in 2 weeks, Big Laughs are back on ABC. John Ritter and Katie Seagal are married with daughters.
I can see your bra and that slingshot you're wearing under your pants.
That's a thong.
It's floss.
The series premiere of 8 Simple Rules. Then, we're gonna get sneaky.
What? What's going on?
It's a sneak peek at life with Bonnie. Wife, mother, TV star. For wives who lead 3 lives. It's a comedy that works as hard as you do.
Oh!
Big Laughs begin Tuesday in 2 weeks at 8, 7 Central on ABC.
His internship in war-torn Bosnia.
She's not breathing.
Oh, that prepared him to do battle in a major American trauma center.
You performed surgery on a non-patient. You don't know what you're talking about.
And while Dr. Bob Dalgetty is no angel,
Oh, doctor.
he performs miracles every day.
We can do this.
MDs, new Wednesdays this fall on ABC.
What you're going to see now is democracy in action. In 1995, with the majority of Americans supporting wolf reintroduction, the gray wolf was getting a second chance in the lower 48 states. The federal government, which once hunted the wolf to near extinction, was now off to neighboring Canada to dart and tranquilize wolves from the air. Wolves that would be reintroduced to Yellowstone and Idaho under the protection of the Endangered Species Act. Where once the federal government had paid hunters for killing a wolf, now it would be a federal crime. What's the penalty for killing a wolf?
It can be a year in jail, up to a $100,000 fine. You can lose your hunting and trapping rights. You lose your grazing leash. The fines can be very severe.
Is this the federal government's way of saying how serious it is about reintroduction?
I think it's the federal government's way and Congress's way of indicating that the Endangered Species Act is very important to Americans, and we take enforcement of those laws very seriously.
Over a 2-year period, federal agents captured 66 wolves in the Canadian West.
Only the yellow ones get changed, Renee.
The wolves were examined, given a name and a number, and a radio collar placed around their necks so they could be tracked and monitored in the wild.
I was the second biologist from the American team that went to Canada to be the person on the ground working with the Canadian trappers up there. And they were really amused. They asked me, do the Americans know what they're getting into by putting wolves down there in their country? And I said, I don't think any of us really know. And they said, well, these wolves are a highly productive animal. Be warned, these wolves are going to do fine down there. You've got all those deer and elk, and especially places like Yellowstone, you're going to have lots of wolves. And then they, of course, told me, you know, they occasionally kill livestock, and it's going to make for some interesting situations down there.
Watch your hand, watch your hand.
And everything those Canadian trappers told me has come true.
Bye, babe. Bye, babe. Have a great day.
During 1995 and 1996, 35 of the wolves were released in central Idaho. It made many people very unhappy.
We were just stunned that the federal government turned these animals loose, knowing with certainty that they would eat our lambs and our calves, and they would threaten the livelihood of ranchers.
Within days after the first release, a local paper reported a wolf had killed a calf and been shot while feeding on the carcass. a sign of things to come. It is very rare to see wolf pups in the wild. In Idaho, the wolves have made a remarkable recovery. From the original 35, there are now as many as 300.
In central Idaho, it's, you know, like the Garden of Eden for wolves. There's tons of deer and elk and wild things to eat. There's big wild country, 13 million acres of federal Forest Service public land that wolves can live in. The wolves we got from Canada lived in areas very much like this. They fed on deer and elk and moose, and so when we grabbed those wolves in Canada and put them down here, it was just like going to heaven.
But just as the Canadian trappers predicted, the wolves have found cattle and sheep to their liking.
Just like livestock producers lose cattle to snowstorms and bad weather and poison weeds and coyotes and mountain lions, there can be occasional losses by wolves. It isn't that big of a problem if it's somebody else's livestock, but if it's yours, it's a pretty serious thing.
Last year we lost about 26 head that we could identify, plus a guard dog.
We've had wolf problems in 4th of July Creek. This is 4th of July Creek. We've had it in Champion Creek, which is here. This is Milky Creek. We've had problems there.
The number of dead livestock is difficult to confirm. Many times the remains of a kill are never found. But as the wolf population grows, so do the livestock losses. And so does the rancher's frustration. They are not allowed to hunt the wolf.
Four-legged animals, wolves, mountain lions, have more rights than people. And that's exactly the power that we've given those animals.
As a federal employee, Ed Bangs gets the brunt of the criticism.
The wolf has become a real symbol in the West of the federal government versus the state government.
Oh, yeah, and I think wolves have always been real powerful symbols. But out here, I think the wolf did take on the persona of the often quoted phrase, is a bunch of New Yorkers shoving their values down our throat, using the wolf to do it.
You know, so it's another case where no one listens. So you say, you know, you have a voice, you say that we can say things, but nobody cares what we say.
Ed Bangs says that in a democracy, there is more to it than that.
I think, yeah, you know, have to look at the balance side of that in terms of a republic like we have. There was a lot of people that wanted wolves here.
What we heard in Chalice, Idaho, we heard everywhere in the West.
The people in the cities want this, and there's more of them there. So it becomes an issue of a lot of people here want this, and you're just a few, and you're expendable.
Essentially, what you had was a group of people living in an area that were going to be severely affected economically, socially, and culturally, and they didn't want that to happen, and that didn't matter.
This resentment of the federal government has been evident in American life ever since the country's founding. It is the idea that people far away are making decisions without understanding the local consequences.
For them, you know, they're in an area that's high density. They don't get to see wildlife. The picturesque view of seeing a wolf howling, you know, is just that warm and fuzzy feeling for them. If their children had to go out and get on the bus, I don't think they'd find it as warm and fuzzy.
Many people here are frightened that the fortunes of the West are changing.
In my opinion, it's not even the wolf that frightens people. It's the Endangered Species Act that,
Yes.
I mean,
it's like so many people have said, it's not the four-legged wolf you're worried about, it's the two-legged one.
Yeah, and I mean, the Endangered Species Act is like a sledgehammer poised over your head.
In Salmon, Idaho, Dave McFarland says it's about the next generation.
Think of the frustrations, you know, of Johnny's kids. Little John, who has come back. That's the only thing he knows is ranching. He's got wolves eating at the doorstep, 3 little kids, all of the profit that the ranch is generating, the wolves are getting. That's a horrible situation. I don't think even the proponents of wolves want to see that.
I don't think they care. Well, I don't think they care.
The Founding Fathers would probably not be surprised by this demonstration. They argued intensely about how much power the federal government should have.
There is a war on the West. A war on the West. And a lot of my friends feel the same way.
You said the manner in which the wolves were brought here will cause anger and resentment that will last a generation or more. Do you really believe that?
Oh, I certainly do. I certainly do. You know, the people that have been damaged by wolves and by other actions similar to this are not theoretical people to me. I know them. They're my friends. And I won't forget what was done to them, and most of us won't. That'll stay with us a long time.
In Search of America will continue in a moment.
Here's a cool idea. Take the cleaning power of toothpaste, the icy cool freshness of real mouthwash, and put them together. Colgate 2-in-1 toothpaste and mouthwash in Icy Blast Whitening. A unique liquid gel with a blast of real mouthwash coolness that freshens breath. Truly refreshing. Colgate 2-in-1 toothpaste and real mouthwash.
America's always had heroes. That's just the way we are. You can find them on the Potomac. You can find them in Cooperstown. You can find them almost anywhere. Now might be a nice time to pack up the family and go search out a few heroes of your own. There are over 4 million miles of roads in Alamo country, and they all lead somewhere special. Alamo, the official rental car of the American vacation.
Wonder what's going on in your local public schools? Take a look. Teachers, parents, and support professionals are working together to make learning come alive. Teachers inspire our kids to reach new heights, whether it's helping students master the alphabet or explore new worlds on the computer. Our teachers are leading the way, working for smaller classes and salaries to attract and keep quality teachers. The National Education Association, making public schools great for every child.
When you learn about laundry, they say, you know, the whites go here and the darks go here and the lights go there. What do you do with this? I'm hoping for the color not to get on anything else. Please let the clothes come out looking the way they did when they went in. With the Shout Color Catcher, you take this sheet and you throw it in the wash and you close the lid. And if there was red in there, the sheet would come out red, but it's not on my clothes, it's on the sheet. If I had thrown a shirt in with the blue jeans, which I did, here's how it came out. I don't want to do laundry without it.
New Shout Color Catcher. The proof is on the sheet. S.C. Johnson, a family company.
September 11th, the country will come together in one place. 9/11 ABC. Unprecedented continuous coverage throughout the day and night. 9/11 ABC. It's where the country will come together again.
In Search of America with Peter Jennings continues after this from our ABC stations.
Are you ready for some screwballs? With Drew and Who's Line in the game, this night is a party. We get your whole gang laughing and feeling all right when Drew and Who's Line kick off Monday night.
Drew Carey, Who's Line, and Monday Night Football, Monday on ABC.
No, less than 28 members of the same Detroit family have lost their big old home following a terrible fire. Tonight on Action News, we're live at the scene with their unusual story.
Also at 11 tonight, Councilwoman Brenda Scott's family is calling attorney Jeffrey Feiger.
Plus, Action News has learned that a controversial state home for troubled boys could be in some serious trouble.
And find out if you're helping someone else pay their water bill.
It's all ahead on Action News.
And we'll see you at 11.
You're it. You hide. 1, 2, 3, go. That's the mayor.
Now Teddy comes in Chetty. Crispy crackers baked with Kraft cheese. Teddy Chetty. Crackers so cute you'll eat them up.
Time's up. I win.
The latest look is DKNY.
Alan Tracy is best with basic black. The newest thing to hit the floor.
It doesn't matter what you look like if you can't see. Designer frames for all ages. Now 30 to 60% off with 90 days, same as cash. Optimize your image. 1-800-EYE-CARE.
The Icebreaker Olattack is powered by 6 diesel engines. Sometimes, however, it needs a 7th diesel. The Ford Super Duty Power Stroke. It's packed with 525 pound-feet of torque, more than any truck of its kind on Earth. Ford F-Series, the world's best-selling truck 25 years running, has no boundaries.
Channel 7's Diana Lewis awarded the Emmy for Detroit's Best News Anchor.
Continues.
Thomas Jefferson never saw the magnificent Sawtooth Mountains of central Idaho. But Thomas Jefferson was a farmer, and he believed that man was meant to exercise his dominion over the land and make it productive. When he was president, Jefferson sent the explorers Lewis and Clark to investigate this vast, uncharted territory. Jefferson's beliefs are very much alive in the minds of many people here today.
Do you believe, as the early settlers did, that it is part of man's manifest destiny to have dominion over the land?
It is my responsibility to make the land as productive as I can and to care for it, to keep and nurture the natural processes that will make that land productive for me and for wildlife. We have a world population that needs to be fed that didn't exist when Lewis and Clark first came through Idaho.
Lewis and Clark were the first representatives of the federal government to set foot in what is now Idaho. But as we have seen, they were hardly the last. In many ways, the federal government could fairly be called Idaho's landlord.
61% of Idaho is federal land. That's a lot. For a long time, the use of the federal lands was primarily for the production of goods and services for society. Timber, mining, ranching, that was what those lands were viewed as, sort of a basket of resources to be produced. And the people that did that were good people doing good things for their country.
One of the first things I remember about Bill's dad was his pride in the fact that he was raising food to feed America. That was his job.
The federal government and the men and women who settled the West were partners in taming these wild lands and turning them into a national resource.
The federal government sort of supported the very values of many Westerners. You know, the Forest Service was about timber harvesting, and that was righteous. That wasn't just, you know, let's get the cutout to make a bunch of money. That was the righteous thing to do in the federal lands.
For much of American history, what was good for the West was good for the whole country. For more than 65 years, Idaho ranchers have been permitted to lease millions of acres of federal land on which they may graze their cattle and sheep. And the right to lease these lands has been passed down from one generation to the next.
You know, all of this land is not owned by us, it's owned by the federal government, but we think of it as ours, you know, because we live on it and we take care of it, and we know every inch of it.
You know, you don't work on it and ride across it and move livestock on it and not learn to love it.
Some of us have range on that side. There's about 10,000 acres in that allotment. There's about 10,000 acres in the next allotment. We also have an adjacent forest allotment that's about 20,000 acres.
We cover a lot of ground in the summertime.
And it's all beautiful. I tell you, this is God's country.
Using your background and your upbringing in ranching, tell us the importance of public land to a rancher.
Well, it's nearly everything if you're going to graze cattle or sheep in the state of Idaho. I say that because most of our ranches have grazing allotments. and they are of substantial value. There is simply not enough private land in our state to sustain our livestock numbers. So if you're going to have a livestock industry, a grazing range livestock industry of cattle and sheep, you have to have access to the public land.
But now the same Americans who wanted the wolf reintroduced to the West are having second thoughts about the ranchers using public lands.
Ranchers, including my family, have had a great run in terms of use of these lands for the last century plus, but now we are evolving a different view of the importance of these lands as a place to protect and preserve creation. There's a tendency among Western ranchers, I see it in my own family, to think that the uses that were established in the 19th century to the use of public land back when ranchers, there were no feds of any kind around, ranchers just kind of ran the place, that becomes an entitlement that you have an absolute right to pass down from generation to generation to generation. That's not the case. These are public lands owned by the people of the United States.
Bruce Babbitt was the Secretary of the Interior from 1993 to 2001. He signed off on the wolves returning to the West. To the ranchers, Mr. Babbitt represents the heavy hand of the federal government.
Mr. Babbitt seems on occasion to be public enemy #1 in your state. Do you believe he misused the Endangered Species Act in any way?
Yes, I do.
Can you explain how?
Well, to go into an area where a species has already been eliminated, and for good reason by a substantial number of people's point of view, and say, we're going to change that. And in changing it, we're going to produce a lot of conflict and have not much resolution to it, in my opinion, is a misuse of the act.
Problem is that I think an awful lot of traditional Westerners, led by the ranching community, are stuck in an image of the past. The national consensus in the 19th century wasn't about wildlife. It was about getting on the land, subduing it, incorporating it, conquering it, making it a secure part of our national life. Federal agencies were partners in that. That's changed. That's history. We are now about recognizing our heritage and restoring a landscape to a condition that was there when the first pioneers came.
The public is less desirous of timber being harvested from public land, less desirous of mining activities on public land, less desirous of grazing on public land. The American citizenry is beginning to recognize that their public lands might be able to do other things that they, at this time, find more valuable. The provisioning of clean water, the provisioning of habitat for rare and otherwise imperiled species, the provisioning of recreational opportunities.
The public lands, after all, are owned not by ranchers, but by you and me and all the people of the United States. The wolf reintroduction not only has been a spectacular success, but I think has made a tremendous statement to the American people that we can restore the land. Here is nature as God created it.
Dry active liners from Tenna, designed to fit your style.
Mayfair strange in the morning light, Mayfair strange in a summer night, Mayfair strangest in the afternoon. Starry heights.
Yesterday, one of our advisors showed this woman how even if her brother outlives her, she can always be there for him.
Introducing the totally new 2003 Ford Expedition. Now you can achieve maximum inner space within seconds.
with exclusive, powerful third-row seats.
Whoa.
That fold flat at the touch of a button. The totally new 2003 Ford Expedition. It has no equal. It has no boundaries.
Coughing up cards. Easy. Magic wands. No brainer. Furry woodland creature. You want to know what's really magic? That's when Singular takes my unused minutes and makes them reappear the very next month. Oh, now you're impressed. Rollover, only from Singular.
Tomorrow, can a simple stroll protect you from a deadly disease? What some women have now learned about that walk in the park. Tomorrow, watch World News Tonight.
They may not be handsome or trendy, but spend an hour with them and you'll know they're the most beautiful men in the world. Report from Ground Zero. It may be the greatest love story of our lifetime. Next Tuesday, 9/8 Central, only on ABC. In the city, the only thing standing between order and chaos is a thin blue line.
Get down, everybody! Hit the ground! We need an ambulance! You're okay, buddy. Just hang in there. You're gonna be all right.
NYPD Blue, the season legends are made of, begins Tuesday, September 24th on ABC. Viewer discretion advised.
You can see it in their young faces. Commitment, desire, pride. They are the future. Help Southeastern Michigan McDonald's and Channel 7 recognize these special young people who excel not only as students and athletes, but as members of our community as well. To submit your nomination, log on to detnow.com. The McDonald's High School Scholar Athlete of the Week. Don't miss your chance to recognize someone special.
The red-eyed tree frog, cleverly equipped with suction cup-like toes so it doesn't slip. Ford Focus, also cleverly equipped. It's the only one in its class with advanced track. It senses which tire needs more grip for more control through a variety of conditions. 2 sure-footed species, but only one has been a Car and Driver's 10 Best for 3 years running. 0% financing for 60 months on Focus will save you over $1,600 in finance charges. Ford Focus with advanced track. Everybody's stuck on it at your Metro Detroit Ford dealers.
The latest look is DKNY. Alan Tracy is best with basic black. The newest thing to hit the floor.
It doesn't matter what you look like if you can't see. Designer frames for all ages. Now 30 to 60% off with 90 days, same as cash. Optimize your image. 1-800-EYECARE.
This is the Cooper Union Architecture Studio, which is composed of architecture students. You're picking out 2 amazing ideas, Fritz Lang's Metropolis and his reading of the modern movement. The modern movement in architecture was not a style. The modern was against style. It's a parasite that latches on to the corners of modernist buildings. I have to make money, but the money isn't the first thing. The idea is the first thing.
For 80 years, TIA Crep has managed money for people with other things to think about.
Here's the question in Idaho today. Is it the wolf or the rancher who's an endangered species? The rancher's most radical critic in the entire state is John Marvel.
Without the livestock there, we would have had no conflicts between wolves and human beings. Wolves belong here. They were extirpated because of an idea of dominion over nature. And that idea is what's destroying the earth. And if we don't get it under control and understand our relationship with nature better, then we're going the way of the wolves too.
John Marvel is proud to be an enemy of ranchers. He wants to end livestock grazing on public lands.
The amount of lamb and beef that's produced on public lands in the western United States, if it ended tomorrow, would not increase the price of hamburger 1 cent. That's how unimportant it is economically, even to the massive beef-eating culture that America is today. When I talk to ranchers or politicians who support ranchers, I say, your day is over.
Dick and Betty Baker have been raising cattle on the East Fork of the Salmon River for more than 50 years.
John Marvel has publicly stated that he's going to break the Bakers and run them off the East Fork. And I feel they're using the wolf as a tool against us.
I say to the Bakers, hey, go ahead, get your guns out and kill the wolves if you can see them, but they're coming at night, so it'll be tough. So what are you going to do? Are you making any money? Maybe not. How about your kids? Are they living there, or are they already moved to town? How much of a lifestyle is it if it can't continue economically?
John Marvel knows ranchers are hurting. And so does Carter Niemeyer from the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service.
We did impose the wolf on these rural people. They pretty much were on record from the start that they didn't want them and they didn't need them here and there was nothing in it for them, and there really wasn't. But to me, that we do have an obligation to those folks to not force them out of their vocation because we brought wolves back, and so we got to manage them.
Manage a wolf population that biologists in the federal government never expected to increase so rapidly. When the first wolves were reintroduced, the federal government offered the job of managing their recovery to the state. Idaho refused to cooperate in any way. And so the job was given to a Native American tribe. Kurt Mack works for the Nez Perce as a biologist.
Recovering wolves doesn't have anything to do with wolves. I mean, from a biological standpoint, it's not much of a biological challenge at all. It's more of a social challenge. Really, our charge and the biggest challenge we have on the wolf recovery program is to try to reduce conflict by effectively addressing the concerns that people have about living with wolves now.
Wolves showed up on the East Fork of the Salmon River in 1999. They have been killing the Bakers' cattle ever since.
We lost a calf right down here by the tin shed. And we lost 2 down at Wayne's.
We have spent some time with Dick and Betty Baker.
Yes.
And the question for them is, can their operation ever be free from the threat of wolves?
I don't think so, not totally. But one of the deals that was struck with people that live locally that have to live with wolves is that we wouldn't let wolves threaten people's livelihoods and we wouldn't let them chronically prey on livestock.
You'll lose them, then bring it back.
The federal government is now trying to stop the wolves from feeding on the Bakers' calves.
Okay, now, while you've got one bar, just...
Dick, at 80, is being taught how to use some of the government's technology for tracking wolves.
See, they're right there.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so go down and check B119.
B119? Mm-hmm. I'm up every morning going to my little radio and seeing where they're at, and I just can't believe it. Up here on these ranches where we never even had a telephone that would work.
Fence posts have been rigged with radio-activated devices which are triggered by the collars on the wolves when they get close. But none of it has worked. This spring, once again, wolves were killing the Bakers' calves. The government decided the pack had become habituated to eating livestock, and all 10 wolves had to be killed.
None of us wanted to end up shooting these wolves. None of us did. But we all concluded that it was time to terminate this pack and stop the predation and take our lumps and solve this problem.
From around the country, people in favor of the wolf condemned the federal government in no uncertain language. Today, most ranchers have resigned themselves that the wolf is here to stay. They see only one solution to their problem: give control of wolf management to the state. Ironically, now it is in the state's interest to have a healthy wolf population, because that would lead to the wolves being removed from the endangered species list.
I don't quite understand, I have to tell you, the delisting. Why is it so important to get the wolf off the endangered list?
By delisting, that allows us to have state management of this species. Again, the managers closest to the issue.
rather than it is a protected species by the federal bureaucracy. So we've achieved the goal. It's time for the federal government to do its part of it, and that's the delisting.
And butt out.
The state wants to manage the wolf itself because that would give local people an opportunity to write the rules.
Can you live with the wolves in Idaho, provided you have authority over them?
I think we could live with the wolves if we can manage the wolves. In almost every case, state management is so much more effective than federal management because local input is included, because people have a knowledge, an intimate knowledge of the resource. I think we need relief from federal bureaucrats and their regulations, or we're going to lose everything in Idaho that we treasure. They are the problem, not so much the wolves.
It is not the wolves. Remember those people in Yellowstone watching the wolf?
I see it through these.
They represent the voices of people staking a claim to the public lands of the West, every bit as strong as the settlers' claim was more than 100 years ago.
Well, we've come from Tennessee to see some wildlife.
And it is these voices that the federal government appears to be hearing.
How do you think the Founding Fathers would regard this fight between the state and the federal authorities today?
I think they would have stepped back in awe that we would have allowed the federal government to become as powerful as it is.
Look, Jesse, can you see in the movie screen what's showing there?
Today, the gray wolf is once again roaming Yellowstone and central Idaho because of the federal government's power. It is proof that those founders who believed in a strong central government have prevailed. The federal government is once again determining the fate of the American West.
Just ahead, the family of deceased Councilwoman Brenda Scott is talking to Jeffrey Feigert.
Plus 28 family members lose the Detroit home where they all lived together.
And a college parking garage crumbles to the ground. Action News is minutes away.
Healthy Choice introduces everything you love about a grilled meal without the grill. New Healthy Choice mixed grills. Tender chunks of grilled chicken with seared-in flavor, tangy barbecue dipping sauce, and crisp vegetables. A delicious way to eat healthy. Real food and plenty of it.
Just the way I like it. Grilled.
6 new mixed grills from Healthy Choice.
You sure this is going to work?
Guaranteed.
Can I join you?
Be my guest. You hooked it.
Wow. Worried about losing your wow? Ask your dermatologist or plastic surgeon about Botox Cosmetic, or call for the name of a doctor in your area. It's not magic, it's Botox Cosmetic.
Allergies leave you ultra-sensitive? The softest tissue is Kleenex Ultra Soft. Thank goodness for Kleenex tissues.
In Search of America continues. Here again, Peter Jennings.
The nation's founders fought bitterly among themselves about issues such as the one we've looked at in Idaho tonight. To be an American, then, as now, was to speak your mind. Tomorrow, we're going to go to a high school in Colorado to be with some young people who have been wrestling with the 1960s in an interesting way, learning about rebellion and how important their voice is today. I hope you'll join us. I'm Peter Jennings. Good night.
To purchase DVD or videocassette copies of In Search of America, visit www.abcnewsstore.com or call 800-505-6139. In Search of America by Peter Jennings and Todd Brewster is available wherever books are sold. An unforgettable journey into the heart and mind of a nation.
Oscar winner Anthony Hopkins and Alec Baldwin take you to the edge Thursday on ABC.
Next on 7, a Detroit house fire leaves 28 people without their family home, and you could be paying somebody else's water bill. Action News is seconds away.